Good morning, everyone. I'm Denise McGovern, the Vice President of Communications here at the Dallas Symphony. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning. Thank you for your patience as we do a recorded premiere of our Green Room chat this morning. So I pass it over to our President and CEO, Kim Noltemy, to start the chat.
Good morning. I'm at the Mort Meyerson Symphony Center on the West Loge. Usually I'm in the green room, but I thought I'd give you a different perspective today since this is such a beautiful building. We're so fortunate to have George Nickson with us this morning, and of course to have him as our principal percussionist, and he just joined us this year. So we're all getting to know George better today in this Zoom call. So George, why don't you give us some background?
Hi, Kim. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and it's great to be wrapping up my first season as principal percussionist of the Dallas Symphony. It's been an amazing first year. Previous to Dallas, was living in Sarasota, Florida, and I'm currently in Sarasota, Florida. I was principal percussionist here at the Sarasota Orchestra for 7 seasons before winning my position in Dallas. And before that, I did graduate school at Juilliard in New York and my undergrad at NEC in Boston. And was actually, for the most part, grew up in South Florida. I was born in New York, but then when I was young, my family moved to South Florida. And so being back in Florida for 7 years felt like home to me. So it was a nice place to be, but I'm thrilled to be in Dallas now. And it's an exciting new chapter of my career, and I've been loving it so far.
Well, so you're in Sarasota right now, since we haven't had performances for almost 8 weeks, and we all are dying to have performances again. But tell us what you've been up to.
So I've been very lucky here in Sarasota. My wife is principal second violin in the Sarasota Orchestra, and we've got here at the house, we've still got a piano and percussion instruments and violins and all kinds of things to keep us busy. We've been making various recordings of projects we've been meaning to record for a long time. We did a duo by Astor Piazzolla called Histoire du Tango that I think is going to be on the DSO site soon, or at least on the Facebook page soon. And I've been fortunate to have a piano here, and I started as a pianist. And this break from orchestral concerts has actually given me a chance a little bit to have some piano time and be able to read through violin sonatas with Samantha and do various projects. Percussion wise, I've been busy with my students at SMU. We're wrapping up the semester, and it's been tricky to transition to Zoom with them, but it's worked out pretty well. I think our lessons are still going really well, and they're getting a lot out of it as they finish the semester. We have one marimba here, and we've been really working on trying to play a piece that's originally for 2 marimbas by Steve Reich. It's called Nagoya Marimbas. So to make it possible, I've been learning one of the parts backwards from the other side of the instrument, because in my free time, I've had a lot of time to do that. So we might try to record that also. We've been trying to stay musically active in whatever way we can with this new digital realm, and coming up with ideas for Zoom concerts and recordings and all manner of things. We've been holed up at home, but musically very, very active.
That's fantastic. And I know you have a new music group in Sarasota. Tell us a little bit about that and what your plans are for the rest of the year in that music making category.
Yeah, thanks. We started 5 years ago now, more or less right after I got to Sarasota, and realized there wasn't too much contemporary music happening, which was such a big part of my life at school and at Tanglewood and all these places, especially being a percussionist, just playing so much contemporary repertoire, and it wasn't really happening yet here in Sarasota. So we started a new music group, and just a collective that we started with myself and Samantha. some other friends of ours, called Ensemble New SRQ, and SRQ is the airport code here in Sarasota. So we went with a little rhyme with the airport code, and maybe we'll franchise it someday into other cities with different airport codes or something. But we started this group that grew very organically from just us putting on some small concerts of duos of new music, and it's grown to, we have a board of 12 people now, and we've got a big budget and grants, and we write grants and put on 5 to 6 programs a year. And those programs are made up of commissioned new works and recent great masterpieces, and we perform here in Sarasota and in St. Petersburg, Florida also. But our last 2 concerts were canceled this season, March and April, and have been postponed to next season. And we're really trying to stay as active as we can on social media and stay connected with composers, and where we've got a few little premieres that were written for us, some small duo pieces and trio pieces that we'll be releasing in lieu of live concerts. But it's been great fun, and the support of the community here has been amazing. Just, I see orchestras, same thing in Dallas, as kind of the nucleus of a town or a city's kind of artistic life. And here in Sarasota and in Dallas, it's the same. Kind of smaller organizations are able to exist because of the real big organization that the orchestra is, and kind of these smaller organizations spinning around it and creating a really great artistic community, which it's been fun to be part of that. It's been great.
Well, that's really interesting. So you have 12 players. I'm curious to know how you selected them. Did you do auditions, things like that? We all in our business know how tricky and formal orchestra auditions are. And I'd love to hear how you do it on the smaller scale as in comparison. And sort of part 2 of my question is, tell us a little bit about your audition here in Dallas. Were you nervous? I'm sure you were. Everyone's nervous for auditions, but was it a good situation? A lot of people have these, background stories that are fascinating for people to hear about.
Yeah. So for the first question, for our group, it being a bit less formal than the orchestra realm, in the sense that our players this isn't their full-time job. So we don't expect them to be, committed to us, and drop everything else and just be with us full time. We're able to be a little bit more versatile with who we engage, but our core performers are really people that over the years we've collaborated with and known through school or performances at festivals, and just really had a great connection with musically. And that's something that I think with our ensemble, we're really looking for people who engage with us in the performances and are able to bring a spark that maybe augments what we're already doing. So our regular pianist is a fantastic person named Connor Hannock, who lives in New York. But then a lot of the other players are principal players from Sarasota Orchestra, just people that we shared the stage with for hundreds of concerts throughout the year, and just really realized, hey, we'd love it if you join us for this really crazy, adventurous piece that's, super difficult and there's a huge time commitment. Are you up for it? There's a bit of convincing and wrangling to, convince people to give up a few weeks time for big projects like this. But we've been very lucky to have great collaborators here in Sarasota, and so occasionally we have the ability to bring people in from New York and Boston, and sometimes orchestral stars from around the world. So it's been great. My audition story at Dallas, it ended up as a good one. Obviously, it went well for me, as you can imagine. But it was a difficult road to make it all happen, and the timing was difficult for me. Just kind of the way schedules work. In Dallas, We frequently do prelims and semis earlier, and then depending on music directors' availability or when the finals need to be, they're often scheduled later. So my preliminary and semifinal rounds were in April of 2018. I think that's right, April of 2018. And then we had the final scheduled for September, but I was the finals date was to be determined. So they hadn't selected it yet. I think it was right before Fabio was selected as music director. So we weren't sure yet when he would be available, or if we knew that Yap was done, and it was in that transitionary time. But I had been scheduled to go on tour with the Boston Symphony to Europe that September. And so I made it through the semifinals, and we had already been playing. We were playing Shostakovich 4 with Andras Nelsons, and we had recorded it in Symphony Hall, and we took it to Carnegie, and then we were playing it at Tanglewood, and then we were doing this big European tour. And when the finals date came out, it was 3 days after the tour ended. And I just looked at that email. It was from Scott Walzell, and I was just holding my head in my hand, just wondering, like, how am I going to pull this one off? How is this going to happen? So I went on the tour, and I convinced the stage manager at BSO, who you know, John Demick, and Will Hudgens, and the rest of the guys in the section kind of knew the situation I was in. And in every town in Europe that we went to, city in Europe that we went to, I would find a percussion practice studio. In London, there was one halfway to Heathrow Airport, and I would go in, the free time that we had, and practice the audition material. And then on stage before the orchestra got there, I would be there early on stage at proms, just practicing for the DSO audition. And my favorite one, though, was we had a free day in Vienna, and I talked to the crew at the Musikverein, and I was able to be on stage by myself in the Musikverein in Vienna, practicing for this audition for most of the day, and it worked. And I got to the Meyerson, and I felt it was an amazing feeling. Actually, I'd never tried this before, and it's hard to tell your students, like, hey, if you really want to feel comfortable, you should go on tour with a major orchestra to Europe right before your audition. It's not a very practical thing to tell anyone, but having been in these amazing concert halls and these amazing spaces, and just getting used to it, being on stage with the Boston Symphony and feeling like, well, they're all happy with how I've been playing, and this feels great and fantastic. And then walking out on stage at the Meyerson, which is this incredibly beautiful, humongous hall that we have, it took the edge off in terms of the intimidation factor. It made it feel, I walked out on stage, and I looked around, and I was like, yeah, I'm used to this. This feels good. I think I belong here. This'll go well. And it actually reduced the nerves and the nervous energy a good bit, and it made me feel comfortable on stage. So it was an adventure, but it worked out.
That's fantastic that you got that support from everyone at the Boston Symphony to help with this. And of course, I think that's a pretty singular story. We're not going to hear anyone else describing that situation. So you are making lots of music, which is amazing, but what else are you doing? Have you picked up any hobbies, exercise, books, Netflix? What are you doing other than, enjoying this time to really get involved with some pieces that you hadn't been able to do before?
We have been taking advantage of a little bit of extra time, and we have a garden here in Sarasota that normally this time of year is very neglected because we're on stage constantly or running from one concert to the next. So we've been doing some more vegetable gardening in our free time, and the harvest here in Sarasota has been wonderful. I was planning on selling a van that I have here in Sarasota because I had been using it to move all my percussion instruments around. And in Dallas, we have this wonderful space at the Meyerson. It's just a different setup. I don't necessarily need this old percussion moving van anymore. So one of our quarantine projects, a harebrained idea that we had was to convert this van into a camper van and like build a whole bed and water system and electrical system, and we put solar panels on it and this ventilation fan so that if we want to, we can go explore around if we ever have the time. And we first started it out, we just thought, oh, we'll see what happens. It's, we were going to donate the van to NPR. I think we hadn't done this, or some nonprofit. So, it's not really, it's just an old beater van. So we undertook this project, and it's actually coming along. It's going to be great. It's worked out really well. I think it's going to be fun, and I think we're gonna take it west with us. We're gonna drive it to Dallas, and but also we've been packing here in Sarasota. That's been a big. It doesn't look very packed behind me right now because we have a lot more to do. It's actually daunting to turn around and see all of that. But we've been I've been splitting my time this year while my tenure review was happening there in Dallas, and since my wife is playing here in Sarasota, we were going back and forth. And now that we're transitioning all the way to Dallas for the beginning of next season, we're taking advantage of these few weeks, this extra time to get packed and get everything here at the house wrapped up and moved over to Dallas. So that's a little bit of a silver lining for us in that we've had some time to be here at home and go through stuff and try to get as organized as we can because we know when everything does get up and running again, we will be as busy as we ever have been, and we're really looking forward to that, being able to get back to it.
Well, that van could come in handy this summer when you will definitely have more time than you typically do, both you and Samantha, because of most of our musicians at the Dallas Symphony teach or work at festivals around the U.S., and most of the festivals have canceled. So that might be a great way to get out of the heat of Dallas this summer.
Indeed, it might work out. With that free time, unfortunately, which is there, I teach at BUTI, Boston University Tanglewood Institute. Always make it up to the Berkshires every summer, and they have canceled the program for this summer. So maybe we might have to roam around in our van, or maybe we'll be a roaming musical act. Maybe we'll put a xylophone and a violin in there and see if we can do some spontaneous performances around. It might be part of our quarantine project. Absolutely.
Well, that sounds like fun. I'm sure you'll keep us posted so we can get as many people to watch your spontaneous performances as possible.
Absolutely.
So are you a Netflix or any of those Hulu watcher? Do you have a series? Is there something you're really into right now?
Samantha and I have been working our way through The Crown. I hadn't seen The Crown yet, which is great, and I've really enjoyed. I usually during the season I don't have time to spend too much time with it, but what I really have always loved on Netflix and I revisit is Chef's Table. I really love food and cooking, and David Chang has a new series, a few different series about cooking, and I particularly love travel and cooking and how they intersect in different cuisines of the world. So there are many different series that I revisit. There's a really fun Bon Appetit one that we've been watching called Gourmet Makes, where Claire she works there at Bon Appetit, and she tries to reverse engineer all these commercial foods. So she'll take like Girl Scout cookies and she'll open them up and figure out at home like how she'll without looking anything up, she'll try to recreate how they did it and how they made all these commercial foods, which is fascinating just to see that process. But yeah, that was another, I almost forgot about it at this point, but I was right when this was all happening, I was really excited. I had been studying some Japanese and some Chinese because I was going on tour with the National Symphony for a few weeks. And we were planning on going to Japan and China, and that got canceled just before. That was really when everything started with coronavirus. And so I had been watching a lot of Japanese kind of cooking travel shows where people go on ramen adventures and just check out all the ramen in Tokyo and stuff like that. The travel, that's another thing I'm realizing that's also been one of my favorite things to do, is travel around and experience different cuisines and different cultures. And that's also on hold for a while now, possibly for the foreseeable future. So for now, the Netflix version will do.
So tell us what you like to cook. It sounds like, I mean, you probably normally don't have a lot of time for cooking, but you're probably trying some new things at this point.
Absolutely. Well, like most, our household here has gotten really into sourdough and sourdough starters. I think that's a pretty universal concept. With yeast has been hard to find in the stores, but so harnessing the power of sourdough has been really fun. Other stuff yesterday we did a deep dive on fried chicken, trying to figure out like the best way to fry chicken. And we've been, so we figured out like a buttermilk brine and pickle juice brine, and how it really makes it incredibly delicious, as we found. Cooking, yeah, we've had a lot more time for cooking, and we're lucky with the garden here, and we've got fresh vegetables that we don't have to go too far for. And we've been avoiding the grocery store pretty well here in Sarasota. We have a friend of ours who is a farmer, a chicken farmer and pig farmer, and he has it's amazing the quality of ingredients that he has that we have access to. So we usually on Saturdays we go and pick up some stuff from him, and then we have in the backyard, we have a little smoker, and we smoke chicken sometimes and smoke pork sometimes, and just kind of let it cook low and slow for a long time. And we've been really enjoying that. And just we've had time to research, okay, if we're going to cook this dish, we should really figure out how good can we make it? What's the, doing a deep dive on the cooking side of it. Yeah. I worked in restaurants when I was in undergrad and really got an appreciation. I got to know some chefs in Boston and experienced what it's like to work in a very serious kitchen, where everyone went to culinary school and everybody has serious skills. It's very similar to music in a way. I see food as being synonymous with music, in the sense that with music, you start with you only have 12 notes. There's this kind of intangible, or there's a tangible limit on the ingredients you have. Music, you have 12 notes. With cooking, you have whatever your ingredients are. And it's all about the process from there. Somebody's creativity, their nuance, their touch, their ability to take those 12 notes with music and make it something amazing that's so unique to them. And the same thing with cooking. Two different people can take the same ingredients and make them shine in different ways. And that's always been really interesting to me. And I've loved playing around with both.
Well, I'm getting new ideas that if this concert cancellation things continues, maybe we should start an internet series, Cooking with George. And you can talk about the intersections with music. It sounds perfect.
Absolutely.
We'll have to get into wine on the next call. But meanwhile, I think we probably should get back to music for a moment. What are you looking forward to next season?
Next season, I'm very much looking forward to Copeland 3 with Fabio, right at the beginning of the season. That's a great piece for us in the percussion section. And we got a little hint of it this year with Fabio conducting Barber amazingly. It was just an incredible look at American music. And he has a really fresh, and I love it, his eye for American music. And I'm so looking forward to see what he'll do with Copeland. And on that program, a new piece by Eun-Suk Chin, one of my favorite composers, a Korean composer who writes fascinating things, particularly for the percussion section. And that's a U.S. premiere, it's always exciting. I love premiering new works, and especially exciting new works for the percussion section. Mahler 5 with Fabio is obviously a wonderful one to revisit. Verdi Requiem, that's always a fun role for me as principal percussionist in the DAC Ray to have two huge bass drums and really be kind of supplying some of the fury and power there in Verdi Requiem. And I know it'll be fantastic to do that with Fabio. It's always great to be able to do that kind of repertoire with not only somebody steeped in the Italian tradition, but somebody who's an incredible opera conductor also. And Otello, Verdi Otello, that will be fascinating also. There's really, next season is really incredibly exciting. Ravel, Daphnis and Chloe is a great one for us. It's a lot of fun. I really look forward to the movies also in the percussion section. It's always a fun challenge for us to recreate the movie experience. The way they record them in the studios is that the percussion section will set everything up just for one of the scenes, and they record one scene, and then they take a break, and they immediately change everything around, and they get the instruments out they need for the second scene. For us, it's a big challenge because we have to perform them all tied together, all of the scenes. So it's always a fun but logistical challenge for us to figure out, especially on the Meyerson stage. Sometimes with a big orchestra on there, we don't have the luxury of a huge sound stage that they would normally do these movies in. So it's a bit of a puzzle for us to figure out how we're going to get everything in there and which players are going to cover what. But it's a challenge that I love, and it's super fulfilling to play, and have the huge screen up there. And a lot of times we're doing stuff that's sound effects or special effects with the characters and what's going on, and timing it just right is great fun. So I love getting a chance to do 4 or 5 movies a year. It ends up, it's a great yin to the yang of all the classical repertoire for us. It's an exciting season. I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully everything will continue to improve throughout the summer on the way to next season.
Yes, we all have our fingers crossed on that. So someone before we started had asked us to give you this question, which is, what is your favorite percussion piece? Now, I'm sure that's an incredibly hard question, so I'm going to say feel free to add a number of pieces if that helps.
Yeah, that is a daunting question. As many of you know, our section in the orchestra, or what we do and what we play, is vast. We have so many different instruments available to us. So there are great pieces for just the marimba, solo marimba pieces. Even just playing Bach on marimba is a beautiful and wonderful thing and way to unwind and enjoy that music. His solo violin music and solo lute music is amazing. But music written specifically for percussion, I've got a piece that I played a lot and I really love by a friend of mine, Nico Muley. And Nico wrote a piece for multi-percussion solo with a very punny, very Nico title. He's the pun master, called It's About Time. And it's a great piece for a multitude of instruments. There's a vibraphone and a glockenspiel and a bunch of drums and gongs and cymbals. And you play them all as if it's one new composite instrument. And that's really exciting to me, getting to do a lot of what we call a multi-percussion repertoire, where you have, it's almost, you're creating a new instrument just by combining various sounds and various ideas. But the music of Steve Reich for us as percussionists has been amongst the most influential in recent music history, from the mid-1970s until the present. He's still writing incredible works, but how he has re-envisioned or really propelled forward our role, both as soloists and chamber musicians or within the context of the orchestra, has been amazing. And for me, one of my all-time favorite pieces to listen, perform, play, be a part of, or just be near is Music for 18 Musicians, his hour-long, unbelievable exploration of minimalism. And it's really just a huge percussion ensemble piece with a few other players. There are about 6 percussionists, 4 pianists, bass clarinetist, a cellist, a violinist, and 4 singers. And it's just this unbelievable combination of sounds and music that every time I hear it or get the chance to play it, the last time was at Tanglewood in Ozawa Hall. it really just does it for me. It's amazing music. It's an amazing energy, and you're transfixed. It takes you to a different place.
Well, earlier this season, the orchestra played the Julia Wolf piece that included Washboards, which I'd love you to talk about that a little bit because, one, have you ever played that before? Two, you could sort of talk about anytime you're, an instrument is created for a piece specifically. I think that's pretty fascinating.
Absolutely. And that was great fun to have that be a co-commissioned work for us. So we were really bringing it to life for, I think, the second time after New World Symphony, and to have Julia there with us to talk about her inspiration and her idea for that. So yeah, the piece starts out with us, four of us each playing washboards. She wanted four of us playing washboards in unison, and she really wanted them to be visual to the audience. So it was almost this sense of work happening, or this ritualistic idea of the sound, which I thought was fascinating. So we had to get four washboards that matched. She really wanted the sound to be the same across them. So I just went to Amazon and ordered 4 washboards for us. Somebody asked me, they were like, "Where'd you get so many washboards?" Amazon made it very easy for us. But and then it's something that doesn't come up very much, but is definitely an influence from folk music or bluegrass music, or often it would be used, somebody would be wearing it maybe as like a one-man band style thing, as a composite drum set idea. And she uses full drum set later in the piece. But it was really a lot of fun, and she used it in a really interesting way, in a context that, people see a washboard and they see somebody playing a washboard, and it often can have kind of a silly or light connotation to it. It doesn't seem like, this is going to be some profound thing if people are just scrubbing on washboards. But the context she's able to create with that was really fascinating, and it holds I think the audience's attention into the piece from the beginning of the piece in a really, really amazing way. To have 4 people doing this pretty loud and visceral motion in unison, I think was actually almost foreboding or foreshadowed something else in the piece. And getting to talk to her about it and her inspiration was great. It's been wonderful to have her as our composer in residence this past year.
Yeah, we all enjoyed getting to know her. She's fascinating with her history, creating Bang on the Can, and some of the fantastic works that she's composed over the years are really such a positive thing for classical music to have that sort of unique perspective that she does. Well, I think let's check in with Denise and see if we have any other questions from people in Facebook land.
Not right now. We are all done with questions. I think we hit all the topics.
Great.
Well, George, we really appreciate your taking the time to do this and everything you're doing for the orchestra, helping us create online content, and just all your hard work, keeping up your chops. And we can't wait to see you back in Dallas.
Thank you, Kim, and thanks for everything you're doing to help us make this all happen, and continuing to do great things here at the Dallas Symphony.